make it, it's only just a phase. Once we're vaccinated, and everybody gon' be safe. Everybody gon' be safe. One kind, one people. We are roll up to roll up, cause no man's alone. Do what's right, cause I love you, brother, my sister. And we're in this together, my sister, my brother. I don't wanna lose you. I love you too much. I think it's better for us, yeah. It's better for us, yeah. I don't wanna lose you. I love you too much, yeah. It's better for us. Tell your mommy to roll out.
Bless up, Dejo here, and I'm doing my part in the fight against COVID-19 by following all safety protocols and, most importantly, rolling up my sleeve for the vaccine. So I'm encouraging you to do the same, because that's our best shot of protecting ourselves, our family, and our friends. So don't wait, vaccinate. Let's roll up to roll out.
St. Kitts and Nevis, let's roll up to roll out. It's our best shot.
You know, it's me, Mr. HE, and I'm here with one message: roll up to roll out. We all know how difficult things have been during this COVID-19 pandemic. While we continue to wash our hands, wear a face mask, and practice social distancing, how about we take it one step further and get vaccinated? Call the nearest health center to find out if you are eligible to be vaccinated. Or you can contact the Ministry of Health at any one of these numbers down below. Don't be discouraged by the negativity. We all have a role to play in protecting this federation. So, St. Kitts and Nevis, let's roll up to roll out.
Me no know about you, but me love St. Kitts bad.
Be St. Kitts strong and mask up.
I wear my mask to protect my beloved citizens and residents of St. Kitts and Nevis. I invite you to do so too.
Show your love for St. Kitts Nevis and wear a mask.
Keep St. Kitts strong and mask up when you step out.
I wear a face mask for all the nurses, doctors, and other medical workers who are on the front line.
Do the right thing and wear a mask.
Show the world that we are St. Kitts strong and wear a mask.
I wear a mask so that St. Kitts Nevis remains a safe and healthy destination for me, for you, and our visitors alike.
Say St. Kitts sweet. Me no know about you, but me love St. Kitts bad.
A pleasant good evening, everyone. My name is Jacqueline Bryan, your host this evening for another edition of Leadership Matters, which is hosted by the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris. He uses this program to keep you updated on all the developments taking place in the country and to keep you informed of all the decisions the Team Unity administration takes. He's usually joined by special guests, and this evening is no different. So tonight, joining the Prime Minister is the Financial Secretary in the Ministry of Finance, Hilary Hazel, Chief Medical Officer in the Ministry of Health, Dr. Hazel Laws, and Superintendent Cromwell Henry from the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force. We will begin with opening remarks, and to get the program started and set the tone, we'll hear from the Prime Minister. Mr. Prime Minister.
Thank you very much, Jackie. My fellow citizens and well-wishers, I am grateful for this opportunity to be communicating with you again tonight across multiple media and platforms. It is a continuing pleasure to be able to report to you and interact with you, the citizens and residents at home and in the diaspora. I thank you for joining us and encourage you to also participate in the discussion with your questions, comments, and concerns. I deem it my sacred duty as National Leader and Prime Minister to take time to listen to you and to respond directly to your questions and concerns. This is a feature of our good governance agenda. Leadership Matters is another medium through which citizens and residents get the opportunity to engage the office of the Prime Minister. I consider it a privilege to facilitate this activity. It is important for us to continue our ongoing discussions on the way forward, living and ultimately thriving in this challenging COVID-19 era. We are well aware that the COVID-19 pandemic has had adverse impacts on lives and livelihoods across the world. As a responsible government, we have sought to mitigate these negative impacts in St. Kitts and Nevis. My government has always insisted on a life-first strategy and has been guided throughout this pandemic by the advice of our health professionals and our National Task Force, who continue to give yeoman service to our country. Last Saturday evening, I outlined some elements of the new SRNO number 30 of 2021 being implemented by my government in our continuing battle with the COVID-19 virus. These are the rules that will govern our work and movements until July 26, 2021. Among these are the lifting of the 24-hour lockdown and imposition of a 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. curfew. We are moving in a phased manner, given the changing nature of the virus. Lockdown is, of course, a critical tool in the fight against COVID-19. We have seen them employ in the BVI, Barbados, the United Kingdom, and Australia, to name a few countries. A return to work for government workers, private sector businesses opening fully, subject, of course, to nightly curfew and established COVID-19 protocols. AH buses allowed a maximum of 10 passengers, a resumption of inter-island travel, and our vendors allowed to ply their trade in the public market free of cost. During these initial 2 weeks, there will be continuous monitoring and assessment of the situation on the ground. You would appreciate that coming out of a 24-hour lockdown, this represents significant ease of the restrictions and the reopening of business and commerce. This must not be viewed as if we are out of the danger zone. Indeed, increasingly it appears that COVID-19 will be with us for some time. we have to take measures and begin practices that will best allow us to live with COVID-19. Never drop your guard when it comes to protecting yourself and your loved ones from the coronavirus disease. It is dangerous and it is deadly. You may ask, how do we best cope with these conditions? How do we safely reopen and get our people safely back to work, earning incomes and being able to realize the best quality of life desired? An effective strategy to survive in the midst of COVID-19 embodies the following components. 1. Widespread vaccination against this deadly virus. We work very hard to secure additional vaccines, which are very critical for your protection from COVID-19. Please get your vaccine as soon as possible. Encourage everyone you know to become vaccinated. The higher the vaccination rate in our communities, the better for us all, as the communities would have higher and stronger protection. 2. Strict observance of and adherence to established COVID-19 protocols. That is, wearing masks properly outside of your place of residence, social and physical distancing, frequent washing or sanitizing of your hands and high-touch areas. These reduce the probability of infection and transmission of the disease. Thirdly, discovering new and innovative ways that would allow for the completion of our tasks while at the same time reducing risks of transmission of the virus. Fourthly, avoid crowds as much as you can. Crowded events can exacerbate the spread of the virus. Of course, such risks are minimized when persons are vaccinated and adhere to the protocols. Finally, a renewed and enhanced sense of personal responsibility for your life and livelihood should motivate you to do the right thing and vaccinate. A renewed and enhanced sense of personal responsibility will help us to make the best possible decisions for our families, our communities, and our country as a whole. More than ever before, the decisions of every person have the propensity to affect a large number of people. Therefore, personal responsibility is a significant factor in this fight. Let us not think only of ourselves, but let us think of others. Let us think of how our actions may affect others, especially the most vulnerable. Let us do what is necessary to provide the best protection to ourselves, our families, our communities, and our beloved country. These are the measures that we as individual citizens and residents must utilize to protect ourselves. Ultimately, these are the things that will keep us safe and keep the virus at bay. We must resolve to do these things consistently. The reality is that no government, no matter how well-staffed, well-equipped, or well-financed, can by itself fully protect us from the virus. It must be a real partnership. We, the citizens and residents, along with our government, have to continue demonstrating that sense of shared responsibility about which I often speak, and that we have exhibited in the past. My government is doing its part, but we need every citizen and resident to do his or her part in this continuing all-of-society approach. As part and parcel of our commitment to the all-of-society approach between the government and the people, my administration announced on Thursday, July 8th, an unmatched and unprecedented second economic stimulus, primarily geared at augmenting support for small businesses and the most economically vulnerable amongst us. Elements of the package include the implementation of another income support program, this time to the tune of $15 million to citizens who are unemployed and have not worked from March 2020. Our financial secretary is here tonight, and I'm sure she will advise how this will operate and how you can apply. Application forms will be available from later this week, and we will begin processing application forms next week with a view to payout starting in the last week of July. A maximum monthly stipend of $1,000 for 3 months will be paid to qualifying applicants. Small businesses which are renting from the government will receive a waiver for the next 6 months. That is, for the rest of the year, no rent will be paid to the government. We ask private sector landlords to give some relief to their tenants, but we have done much more. Additionally, in order to help those persons who are renting from private landlords, in order to provide them some ease, we have determined that the government will offer a reduction of the VAT rate from 10% to 5% for these businesses utilizing private commercial space. Our bus operators receive strong support from my government, having reinstated the annual import duty exemption for 16 tires, 4 pairs of brake pads, and 3 pairs of brake shoes over a 6-month period for these passenger bus operators. We went further. A fuel subsidy of $400 monthly will be paid to passenger bus operators for the next 3 months. For the next 6 months, stall fees are waived for vendors at our public market. Reduced travel tax for the next 6 months to boost intra-regional travel. The increase in travel will mean increased business for our taxi operators among other service providers. We will continue to capitalize the severance fund. In this regard, I am happy to report that the federal government has paid out $37.9 million to 2,443 claimants. This is the largest payout in the history of the fund. Battered women will receive support through the Ministry of Social Development. For families with persons with disabilities, my government will provide some support to them for the next 6 months. The foregoing set of measures represents an excellent testament to my government's continuing belief and commitment that we are all in this together, and that no one, I repeat, no one, will be left behind in our fight against this pandemic. Indeed, we are all in this together. This second stimulus package also forms part of our strategy for a full reopening of our economy in a gradual and safe manner. The increased economic activity will provide a good boost to retail and wholesale sectors, among several others. As we move towards the full reopening of our economy for business and travel, we must always be conscious of the threat and presence of COVID-19. We cannot drop our guard. We must all continually do our part. The stimulus, the easing of restrictions, and the established COVID-19 protocols are testament to your government's doing its part. It is for the institutions and businesses, large and small, to adopt and ensure that these protocols are continually and correctly complied with at their places of business. It is important for our citizens and residents to abide by these protocols. This is the tripartite effort, moving together to a common goal that will get us soonest to a new state of normalcy. We hold our destiny in our hands. Let us choose to move forward to the stronger and safer future with flourishing businesses, our people hard at work, providing for their welfare and saving for the rainy day. The next 14 days will speak eloquently to our seriousness as a people, our discipline, and our commitment to work diligently to ensure a better and stronger future. A phased reopening is our best way to protect ourselves by giving ourselves time and space to earnestly begin perfecting the practices and habits we need in order to be able to safely live with COVID-19. It also gives us more time to further solidify our successful vaccination rollout. Vaccination is the best way. I repeat, it is the best way to protect yourself from any eventuality. It is the most powerful tool in our arsenal against COVID-19 and its variants. We must see and seize opportunities that this pandemic has created. We must discover new and innovative ways that would allow us complete routine tasks while at the same time reducing the risk of transmission of the virus. If we are able to see and seize these opportunities as individuals, communities, and as a country, we would be much better placed to thrive during this period. So let us move forward with a rebirth of oneness, unity, discipline, industry, and an abiding sense of patriotism. Finally, it is my pleasure to welcome and to thank our panelists tonight, Mrs. Hilary Hazel, our Financial Secretary, who spent quite a bit of time leading the Ministry of Finance in collaboration with other ministries in crafting our second stimulus package. Dr. Hazel Laws, our Chief Medical Officer, who from the very beginning up to the present moment has made tremendous sacrifice in service to this, our beloved nation. We thank her for her support so far. Mr. Cromwell Henry, Superintendent of Police, has been doing an excellent job at the NEAC briefings and in his role in assisting us in maintaining the COVID-19 protocols. I know all of these leaders are a fount of knowledge, and they are all committed to development of my beautiful country. May God bless them, and may He bless all of us. May He keep St. Kitts and Nevis safe and prosperous. I thank you again for tuning in tonight.
The Financial Secretary in the Ministry of Health, Hilary Hazel.
Honorable Prime Minister, gracious hostess, colleague panelists, listening and viewing audience, good night. For those of us who have been following global developments, we would recognize that the prospects for the global economy is much brighter than what existed around this time in 2020. Across the world, experts have concluded that the recovery that the world is experiencing is no ordinary recovery. And that is said in the sense that the global economic growth is likely to remain uneven and dependent on the effectiveness of vaccination programs and public health policies. The key observation is that some countries are recovering much faster than others. For example, countries like South Korea and the United States of America are reaching pre-pandemic per capita income levels in after about 18 months. Others will take a longer time. The literature is also suggesting that countries that have been quick to vaccinate their population against COVID-19 and those that are managing to control the infections through effective public health strategies are seeing that their economies are recovering more quickly. It can therefore be concluded that the differences in the strength of economic recovery across countries are being driven by the extent of government support to vulnerable workers, by a country's dependency on particular sectors such as tourism, as well as by public health and vaccination policies. The good news is that job creation in the United States is picking up, and this is included in the sectors such as tourism. As you are aware, the United States is our major trading partner and source market for tourism. With more disposable income within the tourism source markets, the better are the prospects for the rebound of the tourism sector here in St. Kitts and Nevis. We are cognizant that one of the risks posed by the pandemic is long-term damage to job prospects and living standards for many persons. Recognizing this, the government has used its resources to support the necessary vaccination program and has implemented a number of initiatives to help businesses, families, individuals who are all negatively impacted by the pandemic. The negative impact of the pandemic are still very much with us here in the Federation. Therefore, the government has announced a second round of stimulus initiatives that is targeted at various vulnerable segments of our population. Tonight, permit me to provide some additional details to these initiatives, and in particular, I will concentrate on the income support program and the fuel subsidy program. In terms of the income support program, the primary objective is to provide relief to those persons who have been unemployed since March 31st, 2020, as a result of the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and are not receiving any form of income. The Ministry of Finance has determined certain guidelines to help assess eligibility for payments under this program. Provisions have been made for all applicants for the 2021 COVID-19 Income Support Program to be required to submit a completed application form and a copy of their valid Social Security card to the Ministry of Finance. Persons in receipt of Social Security pensions benefits, persons in receipt of $1,000 or more from other government programs are not eligible for payment under the 2021 Income Support Program. Persons in receipt of the Poverty Alleviation Payment Program payments who are unemployed would be eligible for an additional payment of $500 under the Income Support Program. Government employees Employees of statutory corporations and STEP employees are not eligible for payment. Persons who have filed for and received $15,000 or more in severance payments since March 2020 will not be eligible for payment under the Income Support Program. Self-employed persons who are registered with the Social Security Board and have not resumed will be eligible. As it relates to the fuel subsidy program, this program is primarily to provide relief to owners of passenger buses who have been negatively impacted as a result of COVID-19 pandemic and are not receiving any other form of income. The fuel subsidy of $400 would be paid over a 3-month period to owners of passenger buses. The following are also conditions for participation and receipt of the subsidy. The owner of the bus must be the holder of a valid business license. The vehicle must have a valid registration and is presently in operation. The bus business must be the primary source of income for the applicant. Government employees, employees of statutory corporation, and STEP employees are not eligible for the payment. To say a little word about the support for families with children living with disabilities. The main objective of this aspect of the stimulus program is primarily to provide relief to those families who have children with disabilities where parents or guardians have been laid off or experienced reduced income since March 31st, 2020. Consideration would also be given to those families that are negatively impacted from the COVID-19 for weakened or compromised support systems. Currently, the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Social Development are collaborating to complete the administrative arrangements for rollout of this initiative. The application form for this initiative should be ready by the end of this week, and the forms would be available on the Ministry of Finance's website, other government websites such as those for the SKNIS, and forms for this part of the initiative would be returned to the Ministry of Social Development, whilst the forms relating to the Income Support Program and the fuel subsidy programs would be returned directly to the Ministry of Finance. Contact information, you can be directed to the Ministry of Finance's website, which is www.mof.gov.kn. We have also established a dedicated email, which is covidsupport@gov.kn. The telephone numbers that are dedicated for answering questions, receiving comments would be 467-1092 or 662-1700. Thank you.
And thank you so much, Financial Secretary. We'll now hear from the Chief Medical Officer in the Ministry of Health, Dr. Hazel Laws.
Thank you, Ms. Bryan, and a warm good evening to everyone. It is exactly 2 months since we have been controlling or responding to this wave of COVID-19 infections. During this period, between May 19th to today, July 13th, 495 cases have been added to the Federation's COVID-19 tally. We have now reported a total of 540 COVID-19 confirmed cases for the Federation, with 522 cases for St. Kitts and 18 cases for Nevis. 55 inmates within the prison system have been diagnosed with COVID-19. 44 inmates have recovered, with 11 active cases remaining. The matron of the prison and a team of case managers from the Ministry of Health are monitoring the impacted inmates who are isolated. 15 prison staff members have been diagnosed with COVID-19, with 3 recoveries, and 12 staff members are still recovering. We have had a total of 423 recoveries since the pandemic. Currently, the COVID-19 ward at the JNF General Hospital is void of patients, and we have reported 3 COVID-19 related deaths. The team of senior nurses and doctors is monitoring the remaining 114 active cases. The daily case count peaked between June 11th to June 23 or 23rd and has been under decline since. In essence, the COVID-19 outbreak in the Federation is under control. The COVID-19 vaccination program was launched on February the 22nd, 2021, and in 5 months we have achieved the following coverage rates. 70% of the target population is now covered with the first dose of the vaccine, and 57.9% of the target population fully vaccinated. Let me pause and explain. So 70% of the target population, which is equivalent to about 33,037 individuals, have been covered with the first dose of the vaccine. So in other words, we still have a remaining 30% of the target population to be covered. I want to use this opportunity to commend the 23,123 persons who have come forward and accepted the AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine so far. When you compare St. Kitts and Nevis with the other territories that comprise the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union, with respect to the percentage of the total population vaccinated against COVID-19, the Federation is performing well. In St. Kitts and Nevis, 49% of the total population is covered with the first dose, and about 41% of the total population is covered with the second dose. The Federation is second only to Anguilla, which is leading. Anguilla has covered 62% of the total population with the first dose, and 51% of that population is covered with the second dose. This is a good position. The COVID-19 vaccine is the best ammunition we have in this fight against the SARS-CoV-2 virus. The COVID-19 vaccines are providing a path to normalcy. So what's the way forward? The way forward involves us living with COVID-19. Today is the second day of reopening since the lockdown. We have embarked on a phased approach in reopening the country, as outlined in the Statutory Rules and Orders number 30 of 2021. However, the The COVID-19 virus will remain a fact of life. We have controlled this outbreak and the daily case count is low. However, we will not become virus-free anytime soon. We will continue to have newly diagnosed cases daily and weekly. It was Edward Steinham, an infectious disease specialist, in an article in the Wall Street Journal dated July the 11th, 2021, who said, and I quote, "This is a virus that we are going to have to learn to live with, and we are going to have to learn to manage, and we are going to have COVID-19 patients for the foreseeable future," end of quote. So what does living with COVID-19 mean? Living with COVID-19 means coming on board and accepting the vaccine if you have not already done so, because it is a protective measure. Living with COVID-19 means adopting the COVID-19 protective and preventive measures, including wearing the face mask at all times, maintaining adequate hand hygiene at all times, and maintaining a safe distance of 6 feet from others when in the public domain. If you are experiencing COVID-19-like symptoms, it's important that you remain at home, seek COVID-19 testing and medical care. If you are diagnosed with COVID-19, either you will be asked to isolate at home or at a COVID-19 facility, and you have a duty and responsibility to adhere to the terms and conditions of such an isolation order. If diagnosed with COVID-19, you have a personal and social responsibility to limit and reduce exposure of the virus to others. If you have had contact with someone who is diagnosed as having COVID-19, you will be asked to quarantine at home or self-quarantine, as it were, and you are expected to remain in the confines of your home for that stipulated period. This is what living with COVID-19 means. These simple guidelines will help prevent a third wave of infections. These simple guidelines will prevent another lockdown. We have a personal and social responsibility to adopt these protective behaviors and protective measures. Let us work together to maintain the health and well-being of our people. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Chief Medical Officer in the Ministry of Health. We're now going to hear from Superintendent Cromwell Henry, who represents the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force.
Thank you very much, Jackie, and a pleasant good night to all listening to this broadcast. New regulations have been published. These regulations came into effect at 5:01 a.m. on Monday, 12th July, and will expire at 5 a.m. on Monday, July 26. As indicated by the Prime Minister in his address recently, these regulations do not provide any 24-hour curfew. However, a nightly curfew will remain for the duration of the regulations. The nightly curfew will commence at 9:01 p.m. and will end at 5 a.m. the following day. This means that during this period of curfew, every person shall remain confined to their place of residence and avoid contact outside of their family. Some exceptions are provided, however. Essential workers who are required to report for work or for travel for emergencies. All businesses and enterprises are required to adjust their opening and closing hours to allow sufficient time for their staff and customers to adhere to the night curfew. Persons other than essential workers who are required to move from his or her home during the period of night curfew shall first obtain approval from the Commissioner of Police in order to do so. The night curfew is part of the phased approach to the full reopening of the country. We can expect a further easing of restrictions at the end of this 2 weeks period, provided that we continue to observe the protocols and our situation with respect to new cases continue to improve. I will highlight a few of the provisions of this new regulation now, and we will discuss others further during the discourse tonight. Resumption of work. All businesses and offices may resume their business operations. Where a business is unable to resume its operations by its employees practicing social distancing and physical distancing, it shall allow its employees to work remotely from home utilizing virtual means. Businesses and establishments which can operate should be guided by the following provisions. 1. You must ensure that all customers and staff maintain physical distance of 6 feet inside or out of their business if there is a line to enter. 2. You must determine the total number of persons that may be permitted in the establishment at any one time by permitting one person for every 30 square feet of floor space. 3. You must place distance markers at least 6 feet apart, indicating where each customer must stand on a line at the checkout or a point outside of the premises. 4. Place distance markers at least 6 feet apart outside of the establishment, indicating where customers must stand while waiting to enter. Regulation 13 provides that a person shall wear a face mask covering his or her nose and mouth when indoor or outdoors in a public place. Churches. All religious places of instruction or worship may reopen in accordance with the provisions of Regulation 6 and 13. Regulation 6 speaks to social and physical distancing, and Regulation 13 speaks to the wearing of masks. Regulation 10(7) provides that all street vendors shall operate within the confines of the public market, and an accurate record of all persons visiting the market shall be kept, including their names, addresses, and telephone numbers. All persons using the facilities of the public market shall adhere to social distance and physical distancing protocols, as well as hygiene protocols and the wearing of face masks. I know that street vending is a topical issue, and we are quite cognizant of the constraints at the public market due to its size and the importance of our vendors to the economy. I wish to assure you, however, that the relevant authorities are actively considering other locations in Bastia where food vendors in particular can operate. It is important that we do not allow the disorganized sidewalk vending to return downtown Bastia, because in addition to the traffic safety risk it poses, it presents risk of exposure to the coronavirus as a consequence of the type of gatherings this activity attracts. We therefore crave your support and understanding as we strive to improve the environment for our vendors. Events. Regulation 8 provides that there shall be no mass gatherings, at least for the duration of the next 2 weeks. Limited social activities will be allowed. However, permission must be sought from the Commissioner of Police through the website www.police.kn. Restaurants and takeout food vendors may operate for the purposes of food delivery or takeout services, or for in-dining. However, all COVID-19 protocols must be adhered to. Bars may be open for the sale of liquor. Again, all persons, including the staff, must adhere to all COVID-19 protocols, including the wearing of face masks. Salons and barbershops may open, and no more than 2 persons shall be allowed to remain in the waiting area. Regulation 11 provides some limits or some restrictions on the number of passengers that can travel on taxis and ferries. They shall be allowed to carry no more than 75% of the carrying capacity. However, passenger buses shall not carry more than 10 passengers at any one time. All persons shall wear face masks at all times, and the windows of the vehicle shall remain open depending on the weather, and all persons shall practice good hand hygiene and proper sanitary behavior. Regulation 15 provides for management teams and clubs within each sport discipline to apply to the Ministry of Sports for permission to host inter-team or inter-club competitive matches. However, a fully vaccinated person may attend amateur, competitive, or other recreational sporting events, and all spectators shall be required to produce proof of full vaccination by presenting the COVID-19 vaccination record or other valid proof of vaccination authorized by the Ministry of Health before entry into any sporting event. The organizers of the event shall ensure that a maximum capacity of 50% is not exceeded inside the building or stadium. They shall also ensure that an accurate record of all persons in attendance at the event is kept, including their names, addresses, telephone numbers, and patient number on the COVID-19 vaccination record card. All persons shall adhere to social distancing and physical distancing protocol, as well as the wearing of face masks. The regulation also provides for severe penalties for failure to abide by its stipulations. Regulation 16 says a person who contravenes or fails to comply with these regulations shall be liable on summary conviction to a fine not exceeding $5,000 or to a term of imprisonment not exceeding 6 months, or both. Additionally, a compliance officer or a police officer may issue a fixed penalty notice to businesses or individuals for breaches of the COVID-19 Act. These notices, or tickets as we call them, carries fines up to $500 per violation. It is reported to note that over 350 of such tickets have been issued to date by our police and compliance team, and 50 persons have been arrested for breaches of various aspects of the regulation, ranging from breaching the night curfew to hosting social activities without permission. While we prefer voluntary compliance, our police officers stand ready and will not shy away from enforcing the law to protect the public health. Thank you.
Much, Superintendent. So we've heard from the Prime Minister, we've heard from his special guests, and we're getting to that part of the program where we want to hear from you. Yes, we want your questions, concerns, and also your suggestions. Before we take a break, let me tell you what the phone numbers are so you can make a note of them and call in as soon as we get back. So there are several numbers, and they are 466-2666 or 662-8674 and 767-4765. The international number is 1-239-645-4500 in case you're in the diaspora and you'd like to participate. You can also send WhatsApp messages to two numbers. They are 661-5 5683. That's 661-5683. And also 660-7168. That's 660-7168. And the call-in numbers are listed at the bottom of your screen for your convenience. So we're going to take a quick break, and once we get back, it's going to be your turn to tell us what you think and what you need to know.
Yeah, I know we can make it. It's only just a phase. Once we're vaccinated, and everybody gonna be safe. Everybody gonna be safe. One kind, yeah. One people. We are roll up to roll up, yeah. 'Cause no man's alone. Do what's right, alright. 'Cause I love you, brother, my sister. And we're in this together, my sister, my brother. I don't wanna lose you. I love you too much. I think it's better for us, yeah, yeah. It's better for us, yeah. I don't wanna lose you. I love you too much, yeah, yeah. It's better for us. Tell your mommy to let it roll out.
Bless up, Dejo here, and I'm doing my part in the fight against COVID-19 by following all safety protocols and, most importantly, rolling up my sleeve for the vaccine. So I'm encouraging you to do the same, because that's our best shot of protecting ourselves, our family, and our friends. So don't wait, vaccinate. Let's roll up to roll out.
Welcome back to Leadership Matters. I'm your host, Jacqueline Bryan, and Leadership Matters is hosted by the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris. This evening, he's joined by the Financial Secretary in the Ministry of Finance, Hilary Hazel, Chief Medical Officer in the Ministry of Health, Dr. Hazel Laws, and Superintendent Cromwell Henry from the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force. Leadership Matters is aired on several platforms. Just to let you know that it's aired live on ZIZ Radio, Freedom FM, Vaughan Radio, Win FM, and Sugar City FM, and we appreciate all of our partners. It is also streamed live on the Facebook pages and YouTube channels of ZIZ and the St. Kitts and Nevis Information Service, also known as SKNIS. The program is made available on Spotify as well as Apple and Google Podcasts. So quite a number of options for you if you want to listen again, or maybe you know someone who might have missed it. So, as many options for you as possible. So we're going to go directly to the phone lines now. Because we anticipate that we have a lot of persons who want to get into the program, I'm going to ask you to keep your comments or questions or suggestions brief. And as always, try to be respectful so we can have a top quality engagement here on the program as we usually do. So I can't wait to hear from you. We have several callers waiting already. We'll go straight to the phone lines. Welcome to Leadership Matters. You're live.
Good night.
Hi, good evening.
Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Good night, everybody. I don't need to ask the Prime Minister how are him. Miss Brian, me and Bucky miss you. You're looking very good. Miss Brian, please, when you think nobody on the line, people does be waiting. The last program, the operator put me on hold and did not put me through. The 465 and 466 line need fixing. Please don't cut me off. The Prime Minister wants to hear what I'm saying. My wonderful Prime Minister, you are really the best. None like you, and will never be. When I don't have anything to say, I don't have nothing to ask. I know you're doing good. You use a phrase, they almost eat you. Instead they call, let you know the good you're doing with the CMO and the task force to save lives. People in other countries listening, they still want to know how you get that do. All those money you're giving out. Come on, people. We have to thank God for our best Prime Minister and stop abuse. And the taxi men hear what in it for them. They must not come on your program to disrespect you. They get 4 terms, do nothing. How much for you doing good? They abusing and pretending and still want to be around in big position. If they don't want you leave, it will be Harris again. Don't sign no papers. And let them see what you're doing with the money. You did not send none all over the world. I pray God's blessing on you, extra strength, good health. Although they say you had the corona, that's nothing. Protection, hurricane, you again. Dr. Laws and Inspector Henry and Dr. Wilkerson not here. You all doing a very good job. Dr. Laws, I'm glad you have good strength. You is the headline right now, but don't worry. Sane will always go on. You all doing a very good job. Get home safely all. Thank you.
Thank you for your contribution, caller, and you, listeners and viewers of this program, were in my thoughts as well. I think the producers have taken a note of the numbers you say have been given trouble. I've taken a note as well, and I will share that with them so they can check the lines afterward. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, and thank you so much for your kind words. We'll take another call.
Good night, this is Bunga Media.
Good evening.
Welcome back, Ms. Brian. It's good to have you. And you see you're in good health. Thank you. Hello, can you hear me good, right?
Loud and clear.
Loud and clear, good. Okay, let's get into the meat of it. By how much the IMF think its economy will grow next year? Does the Prime Minister have a view about the unrest in Cuba? Now, I am a farmer and I'm very concerned, right? What are the benefits for farmers right now? In the opening speech, our Prime Minister spoke about a recovery plan for agriculture. Would the farmers be able to have access to it or have a copy of it so we can actually see that agriculture is really heading into the right direction? I know there are a lot of farmers that come in on stream, and I'm very happy to see our Prime Minister, Dr. Timothy Harris, who actually visit the market, not only to see what is going on, but he, as the leader, is buying local. And if the Prime Minister is buying local, it means we need to follow and buy more local so we can be much more healthier to fight this coronavirus. I want to thank Superintendent Cromwell for his assistance. He's very reachable, and during this time, I'm able to relate to him and ask certain questions, and he makes himself available. Now, Bastia is very free now, but today, as I was walking, I see outside of the Republic Bank that they have some like barristers. I think they are a bit too much out on the sidewalk, because it was a bit cluster getting through. So maybe they might have to remove them so the flow walking there can be much more freely, or as soon as the bank is closed, they remove them so we can continue to have a nice flow in Bastia. I love to see Bastia. I can move. I swear it was a lockdown today when I went in Bastia. Easy to move, easy to get to where you're going. Prime Minister, keep up the good work. And this is Bucky got it. We got you covered.
Contribution caller, we'll take another call. Welcome to Leadership Matters. You're live.
Hello.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, Ms. Boyan. Thank you for taking my call. And good evening, Mr. Prime Minister, and your table. And a happy country open up, things going good, evening to one and all. Thank God for you, Mr. Prime Minister, and your team that you have working with you, both in cabinet and the task force. I have two questions. First one is that now the passenger buses are allowed to carry up to 10. Now suppose a bus has 9 passengers in it already, and the next one to make 10 is a mother with a 3-year or 4-year-old child, whatsoever it is. Everybody in the bus has on a mask, including the mother, but the child do not have on one. What is the situation there? Can the mother go in the bus with the child not wearing a mask? That's question number one. And at the Prime Minister's last press conference, we were made to understand that shots were fired up in the Needmos area. And the commissioner gave a response to the question that was asked. And all he said was that the shots were fired and the police went to the scene and the police discharged their weapon. He did not say whether one get shot or 2 got shot. All he said was they were able to apprehend one. Only one of the 2. So he never said whether the other one got shot and he run. So people should look out for any signs of wound on anybody, and then we could inform the police them. Well, to me, the answer that the commissioner gave, that did not go down well, and it is not satisfactory to the people who are looking for good information. Now, Mr. Henry, you have been doing a great job as superintendent. God forbid that you should stump it up when you're going to the task force and you got to go back home. Who will substitute for you? The commissioner of police? Because you are the superintendent of the police force. So therefore, it seems like you carry the weight of the police on your shoulders. My question is that who will substitute for you? Thanks very much, Jacqueline, for taking my call. Have a good night.
Thank you for your contribution to the program, and I just want to let people know that because we have a high call volume, you might be trying to get in, there might be a delay or some difficulty, but I encourage you to keep trying because we definitely want to take your question, concern, or suggestion. So I want to thank you for your patience in advance. I know it could be a little frustrating, but I want to continue to thank you for your participation in the show. We'll take another call. Welcome to Leadership Matters.
Hi, good night. Good night to the general public. Good night to the panelists. Good night. Good night. It's Granny. Let me start by Dr. Laws. Dr. Laws, I commend you tonight and you wasn't there. But I want to commend you tonight very much for the hard work that you and your team are doing for this past 2 months, and we only reached, 530 something? Because I've watched Tatola, and for 2 weeks, Tatola reached 1,200 and something with the new strain that they have. And I really, really want to commend you guys for the hard work that you all are doing. Colonel Henry, I have a little question here for you. Okay, everybody know, the general public know that, the vendors on the streets, they're supposed to, go to the market. Now we have vendors around the island now that, and depend on the livelihood by, vendoring. Do you have a idea or time when those vendors could go back out on the street? And if they do get to go back out on the street, should they be fully vaccinated before they, do so? That's a nice question for you, and I want to commend you also for the hard work. You have the police officers, them out there doing, they're patrolling. Yeah, I'm waiting on because I'm doing all your work. right? And you is somebody I could know. I could take up my phone, call for assistance, and you're always the deliver. Prime Minister, you have a good team underneath you by saving you for last. Now, Miss Hazel, Mrs. Hazel, yes, finance and whoever. You know, a lady gave me a message this week self to give the Prime Minister. But after I heard you spoke tonight, saying about the parents them that have the disabled children, there's a nice lady up St. Peter's by the name of Tessa. She have a disabled child. I think it's this week or weekend she received a package. And she told me that I must tell the Prime Minister, thank him very much, but it ain't for the Prime Minister. It's for you. You hard work. And I also want to thank you, but I want the Prime Minister in this too. I mean, giving the bus drivers them the opportunity to obtain duty-free and not even 12 tires what we used to get before, but 60 now. Now some of the buses them carry brakes pad, all brakes pad. So yes, I want to thank you very much for, oh yeah, and I got to go to you again too for the $400. Well, people always say when things we take two, but we getting $400 every week for 3 months. Prime Minister Harris, let me go to you now. Hey, I'm going to tell you, you're unbelievable. I sit down last week Thursday in my bus with my volume up by a shop and we listening. And everything you outline to give another stimulus package to this country, it was unbelievable. When you finish speak, everybody bust out, Harris again, team unity again. I ain't gonna lie about that. Everything was well put together. Prime Minister, when you turn on and say that you're going to give the buses them $100 a week for gas for 3 months, there's a God up above. The first time I ever see me lights on, me gas lights on in my bus was them to last weekend there for 6 years. Because I know how everybody feeling the hardship in this country. Not more or less saying hardship, you know, but I'm talking about the coronavirus. And you have bring this country from last year, still batting. I hear IMF call you, you tell the wrong number, you ain't ready for nothing yet, you know. And then I hear the Central Bank call you, you ask them if they printed $1 bill because you ain't ready for the money yet. Prime Minister, I want to commend you. I would have loved, even though you have a nice team here tonight, I would have loved to see all the ministers them here. See that are coming right now. All the ministers.
No, I appreciate your high praise, but we're taking time away from others who would like to call in. So while I really appreciate that you're willing to express your deep appreciation to the Prime Minister and his team, I would also love to hear what others would have to say. So if you could wrap up quickly, so that we can take some additional calls. I'd appreciate that as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. You are a regular caller, and I always appreciate your contribution, but it's very important we take as many as possible. So thank you for your understanding. We'll take another call. Welcome to Leadership Matters. You're live.
Hi, good night.
Hi, good evening.
I want to ask 2 questions, please. One to the doctor and the one for the Prime Minister. The country and the next booster shot sometime soon. That's one. And next one for the Prime Minister. How soon is sustainable will be getting the money to give people like pound and so? That's the 2 questions.
Well, I'm sorry, we're having some difficulty hearing you. So if you could speak a little louder and clearer and repeat your 2 questions.
I was asking if the country needs a 3rd shot, like a booster shot. And the question for the Prime Minister, how soon sustainable we get the money to get people covered?
Did someone get that? What's your second question, caller?
How soon sustainable we get from the government to give people covered?
Current?
From from sustainable because we're supposed to be giving the current
electricity.
Yes.
We understood what you're saying, but you might have another opportunity to call back in. Thank you so much for your call. We'll take another. Welcome to Leadership Matters. You're live.
Hi, good evening to the panelists.
Good evening.
My comments and concerns are directly to the Prime Minister. The time has really come for us to pay close attention in this country to light manufacturing and agriculture. It has to be constant. I think we have to have more town hall meetings with what I call the ordinary folk in this country. Yes, it's one thing to be giving out stimulus because people are hurting, especially in these tough times. We're hearing that the pandemic is going to be around for a very long time.
Okay, if you weren't able to complete what you were saying, and I don't think you were, please feel free to call back. Hopefully you can get in. I know you were talking about light manufacturers and agriculture, and I anticipate you were trying to make a really good point, so we'd like to hear that. We'll take another call. Welcome to Leadership Matters.
Hi, good night.
Hi, good evening.
Hi, I think Timothy is the worst Prime Minister in St. Kitts.
Like to elaborate, or? Okay, point taken. You made your point. Welcome to Leadership Matters. You're live.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening.
I would like to ask the Prime Minister, I hear him talk about a lot of things, but for instance, two months or so, he promised me he'll give me an update on the step workers, but it seems as though a year done passed since July, and September coming again, make a year. So I would like to know concerning what if he still plan to put step workers over to government.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your contribution to the program. We'll take another call. Welcome to Leadership Matters. You're live.
Good night.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening to everyone. Prime Minister, good night. And good night to you, panelists there, and Mr. Henry. Prime Minister, I want to thank you for the wonderful work you have doing in St. Kitts and Nevis. You're the poorest Prime Minister in the Caribbean, but you're the best. And you don't boast on your riches, you boast on your performance. You're rich in love, you're rich in blessing, you're rich in loving, sharing, and helping, and always trying to know people. Prime Minister, I want to thank you. And when you tell them go home and fast and pray, maybe they take it in a bad way. But when you tell them go home and fast and pray, you know what you had in store for the people them of St. Kitts and Nevis. And that is where you come up with this, what must call it, I don't have words to call it, this big support to all of them. So when they're talking rah, 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 your brain's working round the clock, off the clock, and in the clock. So thank you for your good work, and you keep on boasting, both on your performance, and you're the best Prime Minister in the Caribbean, and the poorest again, look what I say. Because you're poor because you're always giving and helping and always willing to listen to people, hardship, the pain, and the suffering, and do something positive with it. So Prime Minister, good night. Keep on boasting. I see you boxing. Box them down. Good night to everyone. Mr. Henry, I'm proud of you. You know, you come a very long way. I'm looking at this screen and I see all age. I see Harris. I see Henry. I see Hillary. To Hillary? No, to Hazel, yeah. I see age. And Miss Brian, they put you in the middle, so you do a B. So, good night. That's a good thing. That's hopes. All the mates for hopes. Good night, PM.
Bye.
Thank you so much for your contribution. We'll take another call.
Yeah, good evening to everybody on the panel. Mr. Prime Minister, I just want to update us every week to let us know what's going on in the nation, the Federation. People will talk, but the more they talk, the more you see away. Who God bless, no man curse. Who God put together, no man put asunder. So when they're going wrong, rah, 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 don't forget you have the emergency powers. Thank you, sir. Good night.
Thank you so much for your contribution to the program. Do we have any additional calls? Okay, we have one more call we can take right now before we pause and respond to the questions we've gotten so far. Welcome to Leadership Matters. You're live.
Pleasant good night to the panel.
Hi, good evening.
And you all are doing a wonderful job keeping the country focused. And once the community and the country in the whole do what have to do, I guess we could fight this thing to the end. And also, the Prime Minister and Mrs. Hazel, thank you all very much that I could earn a salary every month. I don't know how you all get it though, but may the Lord bless you and protect you all. And Mrs. Hazel, Lord, trust me, you are earth angel from heaven. You all have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
And thank you so much for your contribution. And I'm assuming the caller meant box them down figuratively, just in case that is misconstrued. Wanted to clear that up. So we're going to take responses to the questions that we've gotten so far. I appreciate the calls we've gotten. It's good to know that people can express themselves, whether you are for or against. And that probably is one of the things that define us as a democracy. So thank you for all your calls. We will begin with the question about how much growth did the IMF predict St. Kitts and Nevis would experience over the coming year?
Yes, for that caller, the answer is the IMF has predicted that the economy of St. Kitts and Nevis will not see that marked contraction that we experienced in 2020. However, we would see growth rates in around the region of -1%. We are hoping, though, that the economy would be reopened and perform with the help of every citizen that can work, will work with the government, public and private sector, to ensure that we do our best to return to positive growth this year.
Thank you so much for that. We had a question, Prime Minister, asking about your views on the unrest in Cuba.
Thank you for that important question. Cuba, at this moment in its history, is experiencing significant, I would say, social instability at this time. I received a report from our ambassador in Cuba, and I'll just read some pertinent sections of that report. President Miguel Diaz-Canel convened a press conference this morning with key ministers to discuss issues related to unprecedented widespread protests on July 11th, and we know those protests continues. The challenges that Cuba is currently facing have led to growing levels of social dissatisfactions and actions taken by the government to resolve them. What are the issues that have caused or led to the protests? Constant power outages in residential zones, shortage of medicine, shortage of food and basic items, limited access to vaccines. Now this is an interesting one, because time and time again there are persons maliciously saying to people here in St. Kitts and Nevis, wait for the Cuban vaccine, knowing a number of truths, one of which that the Cuban vaccines, none of them, and there are quite an array of them being proposed as candidates, neither of them is yet, to my knowledge, to have been approved by the World Health Organization. We had established as a standard that any vaccine to be used here in the foreseeable future would be those that are approved by the World Health Organization, which is a reputable international body dealing with issues of public health. But here we are seeing in the report that in Cuba right now they have limited access to vaccines, housing conditions, and of course the issue of democracy and freedom. And interestingly, the report says the grave situation of the coronavirus in Cuba forced the government to open makeshift hospitals and isolation centers in other institutions and hotels. The collapse of the health system also played a major role in Cubans taking to the streets yesterday. Reference was made to the fact that the embargo prevents them from purchasing materials, medical components, and medication. So Cuba has been a blockaded country for many years, since about 1959 or thereabout, with the overthrow. And in recent times, under the last president, before this one, President Trump, a number of additional sanctions were imposed against Cuba, which has disrupted its ability to participate in international trade. And so that has brought the country literally to a most dangerous point, particularly at the time of a pandemic, which it also has been had, like all countries around the world, to grapple with. It has been ahead of the pack in being one of the few developing countries to have been able to make tremendous progress with the developing of vaccine candidates or candidates for vaccines. It has yet to have the blessing or approval of the WHO, but there in Cuba right now, there is limited access to vaccines. So it is a critical situation. We, of course, have high favor for the government and people of Cuba, who has always been with us in the Caribbean, who has provided free education to many of our citizens and residents, who even in our fight against this dangerous pandemic has made available to us its experts in health, and a brigade from Cuba has come to help us. We wish the government and people well, and St. Kitts and Nevis stands ready within the ambit of CARICOM to render such support as may be deemed necessary to help it sit through what is now a most difficult period. From the reports we are hearing that for the last 30 years, Cuba had never seen the protests and the magnitude and the type that is now being evidenced. We hope that the situation will soon be returned to calm.
Thank you so much for that response. We have a question asking if farmers will be able to access any of the benefits recently announced.
With respect to that, we can say that farmers have been benefiting from the stimulus package of 2020, and they continue to benefit in 2021, because in this year's budget we provided, I think it was $3 million to help the farming sector to continue its work. And significant benefits have accrued to the farmers individually and collectively. At the individual levels, hundreds of acres of land were plowed or harrowed for the farmers free of cost. Seeds had been provided to them free of cost, and other inputs either free of cost at significantly reduced. Farmers also receive a stipend for livestock losses attributed to dermatophylosis disease. So where they would have lost, they would have at least received some stipend or quote-unquote compensation. Additionally, the Ministry of Agriculture has used that $3 million or portion of it to establish a meat processing plant at the abattoir. And I gather they are now constructing a processing facility and outfitting it. They are to renovate the pack house. They have secured a delivery van and have done some upgrade at the Bastille public market. Of course, this is a work in progress, and more work is to be done, for example, on the roofs, on the stall, etc. So this is an ongoing work. The ministry has also been provided shade houses to a number of farmers with a view to ensuring that they can sustain their production of crops, fruits, and vegetables over the long haul. And I want to commend the ministry for that particular initiative. The fisher folks likewise are beneficiaries of that $3 million. And of course, up to June 2021, 20 duty-free requests were received from the Fisheries Department. Among the items which were approved for duty-free would be pickup truck, engines, vessels, repair equipment, wires, and crawfish. And again, farmers continue to benefit even for this year. There have been 12 applications for duty-free concessions, 11 from crop farmers, and of course, 1 from a livestock farmer. The items on which the government has provided duty-free include 2 tractors, 2 pickup trucks, 3 drip irrigation supplies, 2 sets of packaging supplies, solar panels, security systems, drone equipment, fencing, and farming supplies. So the Ministry of Agriculture has indicated to me when I asked today that the $3 million is being well used and that the farmers have been benefiting and the fisher folks have been benefiting also. I gather in the works, and this will particularly be of interest to those in livestock, would be the procurement of a portable veterinary ambulance. Of course, this will assist in more efficiently dealing with medical health issues facing the livestock. Infrastructural development continues apace. Fishing gears are being provided. GPS is being introduced to the fishing community, and on we can go. The good thing, however, is that since last year, as a result of the stimulus launch in 2020, we were able to see a recovery in agricultural production by about 4% at the end of the year, notwithstanding the impact of the prolonged lockdowns on the sector. Once we opened up, or since May, when things had been restored to some normalcy in 2020, the agricultural sector took on an uphill movement, positive trajectory. And in 2021, so far up to May, we have seen double-digit increase in the production from our farmers and fishers. So we are getting dividends. We are seeing good results for the investments that we have made to the farming community, and we want to encourage them to continue to do good work.
Thank you so much for that. Superintendent, we had a question asking about the barriers that were placed outside of a business place in Bastia, asking if it might have been too much and probably causing too much of a crowd.
Yes, I think those barriers were placed outside the bank to assist in ensuring the queue was orderly. But I have some good news. Since I've been here, I had a message from the manager that they will be removed tomorrow. So we should have more space on the sidewalk for pedestrians to move freely.
We should then thank Bucky Got It, and Bucky people are listening. The bank manager heard you and immediately determined that he shall take corrective action. So you're doing a wonderful job, Bucky. Please continue having it and reporting it to us here.
And I think it also shows the wide listenership of the program, that we can have someone call in with a particular issue and have it be addressed even before the program comes to an end. So clearly, everybody is listening. We have a question. I think, Superintendent, you can listen to this as well. You can respond to this as well, asking if they put a situation to you saying, suppose a bus has 9 passengers and at the next stop there's a mother and child. The mother has a mask, the child does not. What is the bus driver to do in that instance? Can the mother board the bus?
The mother has a child. The mother has a mask, but the child does not. Well, the law exempts children under the age of 6 years from the wearing of masks. If the child is over 6 years, he should have on a mask, and I would only hope that the bus drivers would have extra masks with them, so that if a passenger is without a mask, rather than leaving the passenger, then they provide the passenger with a mask and allow them to travel. But all passengers on the bus who are eligible for wearing masks should wear a mask once they're on the bus.
Thank you so much for that. We also, this is for you as well. The caller ultimately, the question was, it came down to who will substitute for you? Should something happen to you, who will substitute for you?
Well, I'm certain that if something should happen to me, the work will go on. We have a cadre of eminently qualified superintendents and other senior officers who could fill the gap should something happen to me, God forbid.
And just to add that Superintendent Henry is one of 2 police officers, 2 superintendents who represent the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force on the task force. There's also Superintendent Travis Rogers, who has been on that task force since its inception, and many people may not be aware. We have a question asking about vendors, saying vendors around the island, as much of the focus is on Basta right now, vendors around the island, are they allowed to go back out to their usual spots, and should they be vaccinated before doing so?
Well, we hope that everybody would be vaccinated. But in terms of whether or not the vendors will be allowed to go out, yes, the restrictions currently in the town of Bastille, where persons cause obstruction to the streets and sidewalks. We do not see the same problem in the rural areas, and so those vendors should not be affected by these restrictions.
For that.
So it means, for example, those who would vend or ply their trade on the Atlee's Hardcourt on Saturdays, you're free to go back normal, and all the others who will go. Please observe the protocols, the wearing of your mask, carry your hand sanitizer. Those who would also sell at the Boreal Long Part, as we would call it, you're free to go back out. Again, you observe the protocols.
Thank you for that addition, Mr. Prime Minister. We have a question about a 3rd booster shot, Dr. Laws. Will that be necessary, and if so, when will people need to take one?
All right, so Jackie, that's a very good question. In the media right now, we note that there is much discussion regarding the possibility of requiring a 3rd COVID-19 vaccine dose or a booster shot. Now, this discussion started recently with Pfizer-BioNTech seeking authorization from CDC and from FDA and U.S. officials. However, the CDC, FDA, the U.S. officials, and the regulatory bodies have concurred that more scientific data is required before such a determination is made. So the short answer is more information is required before we can say that a 3rd dose is required. And so it's early days yet. We have to wait and see before such a determination is made.
And I believe the second question for that caller asked about assistance with regards to electricity.
In relation to that matter, again, understanding the caller to be requesting information regarding lands issued by the Sustainable Development Arm of the government. We have set aside a certain sum in the 2021 budget to assist with infrastructure development. I believe that for the year so far, the ministry would have released about $1 million+ to assist. I know some work had been done in the Cayon area, some work had been done in the westerly part of the country, some work had been done further north, so it's ongoing efforts. We met the Financial Secretary, Permanent Secretary Brown from that ministry, and we discussed that. I believe that there is a commitment by the government that we will certainly put some resources in to ensure those who would have paid off for their lots in particular projects are able to move on in getting the construction activity. So if the caller would indicate the specific area to the Ministry of Sustainable Development, I am certain and I'm hoping that the caller has paid down at least his deposit on the particular lot, but we are attempting to do that in a phased way. When we came to office in 2015, we had calculated, I think it needed over $71 million to deal with infrastructural works in a number of areas in which land were distributed, but the roads needed to be done, or at least to, if not pave, at least cut and be made ready, water and electricity. This is a substantial cost, and since that time, other lands have been made available for property ownership, and so the government in a phased way is moving to settle that. And in the 2021 budget, a significant sum had been set aside. I believe it could have been $5 million. I know that we have discussed 1-point-something million being made available, and some work has already started.
Hearing that, caller, so I'm really happy you were able to gather more from what he was trying to get. I hope that answers your question, and we'll be going back to the phone line shortly. Let me share the numbers with you. Once we get the response to this final question, we'll be going back to the phone lines, and the numbers are, if you still want to participate, 466-2666, 662-8674, 767-4765, and the international line is 1-239-645-4500, and those numbers are listed at the bottom of your screen for your convenience. We have a question asking for an update on the status of step workers.
I want to thank the caller for that reminder. We made a serious commitment that as part of the government's program to assist working people, we would regularize the status of those persons who are on the STEP program and make them part of the permanent establishment of the government. That is a commitment that we made, and we stand by that commitment. What has happened with all the shutdowns and delays and the refocusing of actions and efforts of the government in the fight against the COVID-19, we have had to delay that particular action for a later date. And we have an active committee headed by Mr. Levi Bradshaw, our Accountant General, and includes, among other persons, legal representative from the AG's office. It includes representation from the Chief Personal Office. They have done substantial work, and I think we are at a position where they would make a final presentation to the cabinet. What we have had is not a cancellation of the commitment, but a postponement of it, having regard to the focus attention being paid now to the management of COVID-19. I want to say also that it reminds me that we have been committed to the entire establishment of the government, and I reported, I think it was last Thursday, that so far the government has expended over $160+ million in wages, in salaries, in pension benefits, and benefits to the step workers. So they continue to earn, and the government has ensured that, notwithstanding the vicissitudes and the hardships, everyone who had been an employee or part of the public and private sector, the public sector broadly, including the STEP program, has been able to earn something that allowed them to weather the storm. So that commitment again remains.
That we have several callers already lined up, and we will go back to the phone line. Welcome to Leadership Matters. You're live.
Yes, good night. I'm going to make it brief. I'm wondering how the government feeling about the vaccination program as we close that 70% mark. And to follow up on that, are we still trying to target 70%, or with the new variants that we have, if we will have to go 80%? I would really like to know, and I must say that the cases have been dropping significantly. I remember when they was up in the 20s and everybody was scared. Now we're getting 10, we're getting 2, we're getting 0. So I would like to know, how the government feel about it. Do they plan to do anything different, or they're going to continue on the same path that they're on? The step workers, is a bit worried that during the lockdown that they're not going to be paid. I'm not sure if the Prime Minister could shed some light on that. Very quickly, during the lockdown, I see and I was able to share information where the Prime Minister was able to distribute or award or give someone a home. And I must commend the government for doing that. It shows that the government is listening. The government is paying attention to the persons who are in need. And I know Cynthia spoke about it on her show because there was some rebuts about it, and that person was really in need. So, Prime Minister, thank you for that. During the lockdown, I was able to see my representative, Honorable Lindsey Grant, and I was happy because the person said I can't see Mr. Grant, but he is around. Prime Minister, there's a few houses to be given out. Those in Wellington and some in Conyers. I know many persons want to shake the keys. So I'm hoping that during this period that these houses can be distributed to the person, because people like me will want to shake my own keys to Mr. Prime Minister. Continue doing a good job, and this is Bucky Right, and Bucky always got it.
Your call, we'll take another. Welcome to Leadership Matters, you're live.
Hi, good evening.
Hi.
I called in earlier and the call either dropped out or was disconnected, but again I wanted to address my comments and concerns to the Prime Minister. I tend to always have a different take, I guess because I was in the banking system, so my mind is always in that zone. I believe the time has come for, after, we resume some sense of normalcy, the, economy rebounds, that, we need to have some town hall meetings to start to educate what I call the ordinary folk, have some sort of discussion with them about the importance of developing savings, because every time there's a shock, a major shock in the community, in St. Kitts, based on what's even happening now with COVID, which is going to be here for quite some time, maybe for our lifetime, people just seem to fall through the cracks. Just like that, and they're looking for the government to provide them with everything. Stimulus all the time, handouts, and, not recognizing that they also have their responsibilities as well as citizens of this country. So, if they have forgotten, the time has come for us to have some meetings, and have them regularly, whether quarterly or biannually. Let people know, hey, we expect you to do X, Y, Z. If you're having a challenge, these are people you could talk to. They're not going to get the conversation going that way with the banks, because banks want you in and out. You're either ready or you're not ready. And so there must be a backup plan to develop some little savings so people could, find a way. They need empowerment. They need enlightenment. Right now, with all the hurt that's going on, there must be another way. People can't continue to just stretch their hands out, and the government cannot continue to just give the impression like we're going to give. Yes, I know it's hardships right now, but the truth of the matter is when we get back to some sense of normalcy, we have to start having that conversation. Otherwise, we'll continue down this path all the time. So I hope the Prime Minister will take that and, do something about it. I'm sure he's very much aware. Have a good
evening as well, and I'm happy you were able to get back in. Thank you so much for calling to continue your thoughts and sharing it with us. We appreciate your suggestion. I'm sure the Prime Minister's taken notes. We'll take another call. Welcome to Leadership Matters.
Hi, good evening.
Hi, good evening.
How are you?
Fine, thanks. And yourself?
Okay, I'm very well, thank you. Okay, I tuned in late to the show. I probably might have missed something that was said. But my contribution tonight, right, my concern, okay, with the vending, right, we have noticed that those who are selling provisions, they are back in the market. Like, I agree with you guys 100%, right? But there are some people come out very early in the morning, right, like they do breakfast, the little smoothie carts and so. I want to know if you guys have something in place to put these people, because it's not everybody that comes to town goes in the market. I might come down to pay my bill, or I might go, like, I'm going to get my bus. So while I'm walking, I might just grab a sandwich. And these people, some of these people, they come out early, like 5, 6, and like 10 o'clock, they're not there. So I want to know if you guys is making provisions, making a space where these people will go and sell their cooked food or, their breakfast, other than in the market. For instance, I saw a WhatsApp picture, a WhatsApp video with a smoothie cart being tugged today, and I was like, wow. I know you guys were saying like they have a certain time to move these stuff, right? But it kind of calmed me straight because I know these people are poor people, eh? And they have like, you know, they have a lot of food malls around, but me and you can't afford to go in these food malls. They're very expensive. So I was wondering, like, you know, if they have a fit for like the guy with the smoothie truck, I was wondering if they're going to put him like down by the bay where people catch the bus. So please enlighten us on that. And you guys have a good evening.
Thank you so much for your question. It was addressed before, but I believe that a quick comment now that you're listening can be given again. We'll take another call. Welcome to Leadership Matters.
Good evening.
Evening.
Good evening, Ms. Bryant. I have your father in my prayers. This message is for the Prime Minister. Prime Minister, good night. It is time we start naming and shaming. There are companies in St. Kitts who have taken out the monies from their workers and have not given it into Social Security. That money tree up Sophostone got to be running short. We need to name and shame. There's millions of dollars owed to the Social Security by these robbers, these outlaws who have companies in St. Kitts. Please start naming and shaming. The money tree up at Sophostone will go short in a minute. Thank you, sir.
Much caller, and thank you so much for having my family in your prayers. I really appreciate that. We'll take another call. Welcome to Leadership Matters.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Yes. Good evening to Prime Minister and his team that is there, and also the health team for doing just a wonderful job. My concern, I have two concerns really, and a statement. Does senior citizens have any rights anymore? Because when we go to certain business places, they are being pushed aside, and the younger people get more privilege. I have a concern that I went to Inland Revenue on Friday. I was not feeling well. I am a senior citizen. I was not feeling well, and the guy told me, one of the officers told me, he already cut off from where I was standing. I said to him, I'm not feeling well, that's why it's just reached here. It was after 11. It was 11:38. So I stood up there to see if anybody would come and assist me. I had 3 persons in front of me. While I was there, I saw a man came 15 minutes after. After he came, 15 minutes after, they let him in. And I was upset because I said, it is very unfair, very much unfair. One of the young ladies who walked in there passed and she heard me. She went inside, she came back out, and she said, Miss, let me assist you. Can I help you? So I told her, she asked what I came for him to light my vehicle. She took the money and she went inside. And they sent back out the lady with the money. And I was very much embarrassed. Because I'm a senior citizen, I wasn't feeling well, and nobody came to ask what was the matter. They tell me they don't tell me already. Must come back, they don't cut off. But they didn't tell me that. The officer is the one who told me. So I said, you all be very inconsiderate. Anyway, I went to National Insurance this morning, and similar, the same thing happened. I waited outside on that tent. Then the officer by the door called me. A young lady got up and said, Miss, me come before you. And she bowed in front of me and she went. It is very, very embarrassing. And it is not easy for elderly people to stand up in the line that long. Mr. Prime Minister, this is who you know I am. My statement now is to you. I would like somebody to listen to me concerning my child. She has an ongoing problem and nobody is listening at all. She's been sending from here, there, and everywhere, and I can't take it anymore. Please tell me what is the position. For her health is not getting any better, and nobody seems to listen. She's been sent to Miss Hazel there. Miss Hazel sent back to the same department she's been sent to. Please, somebody tell me what is going on. There's a lot I can say, because my heart is grieving. A lot I can say, but I'm not going to say it on it. I need to speak with you, Mr. Prime Minister. I love you and always respect you a lot. You've been there for me when I really needed help, and I really need help now. Please, hear my cry. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your contribution to the program. We'll take a few more calls before we have to close off. Welcome to Leadership Matters, you're live.
Hi, good night.
Hi.
I'm just calling to find out. The Prime Minister had mentioned a stimulus package for persons who have not been working for March. He mentioned Social Security might have something to do with it. But I'm just calling to find an enlightenment as when it will start, because I've been calling Social Security and they're saying they don't have any word on it. They don't know anything about it. So that is what I'm calling to find out. When will it start and where will we have to go to get it?
Not a problem. Thank you so much for your question. We'll take another call. Welcome to Leadership Matters.
Yes, good night, Jacqueline. This is Jam Down. Mr. Prime Minister, this is Jam Down. Those people who sell vegetables in the market, but these poor people who sell food are like ranks who cater for meal, a Rasta, a Italis. He operate down by the terminal. All I want ranks to do is follow the protocol. These people, Mr. Prime Minister, you have to look out for. I assume you could let them go on Bank Street 66 till we sort out somewhere to put them. All who sell food, these people got to make a little money too. They serve the public well. The ladies them with the sandwiches and so around town. Mr. Prime Minister, block off Bank Street. People will always talk. These poor people got to look after. Who sell vegetables go in the right place where they're supposed to be. Mr. PM, have a good night. Everywhere he went, he was doing good. The mighty healer, he sent a letter. When the people saw him, they started shouting. Man, you're doing so well in this country. God bless you. You should have come 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Have a good night, Mr. PM.
Thank you very much, Jam Down.
We'll take our final call for this evening. Welcome to Leadership Matters.
Hello, good night.
Hi, good night.
I have a question with respect to the new regulations or the new rules that was made in respect to travelers, inbound travelers to St. Kitts and the quarantine period. I would like to know, because I heard that it was not in effect for persons who traveled before the effective date Monday. So if persons came in perhaps the week before, or a few days before, or even a day before, why it is not in effect for them? Can someone explain that to me?
Thank you so much for your call. I'm told we have one more call on the line. We'll take that call. Welcome to Leadership Matters. You're live.
Hey, good night, everyone. This is Albert Pemberton. Good night, PM. You're doing a magnificent job. I want to say thanks for all that you have been doing, running the country greatly. Also, I want to Dr. Laws and all the team. Actually, Jackie, I know that the press secretary is vacant, and I believe that you'll be an excellent press secretary for the PM. But I have a quick question for the Dr. Laws. I know they said that when they reduce the quarantine now to 3 days, and then you're going to get a test after that. So my question is, do you get the test on the 3rd day, or do you have to stay in quarantine another day and then be out of quarantine on the 4th day? So could you give me some clarification on that? Do you get the test on the 2nd day so that you can come out of quarantine on the 3rd day, or do you get the test on the 3rd day and the quarantine on the 4th day? I applaud the government so immensely for reducing the quarantine days, because I was contemplating on coming and I didn't want to stay all those days. So 3 days I can live with that. So could you clarify that for me, please? Thank you very much. Have a good night, everyone. Be safe, be blessed. And all those who haven't taken the vaccine should go and take it immediately.
Thank you so much for your caller. I'm floored of your confidence in me to fill such big shoes. But perhaps this is a time when we can reflect upon and show appreciation for Miss Grant, who the announcement was only just made of her departure. But I much appreciate your confidence still. We're going to take a break at this point, and when we return, we will address all the callers, the questions that came in, the suggestions, and those that we have via WhatsApp. So stay tuned.
face. Once we're vaccinated, and everybody gon' be safe. Everybody gon' be safe. One kind, one people. We are roll up to roll up, cause no man's alone. Do what's right, cause I love you, brother, my sister. And we're in this together, my sister, my brother. I don't wanna lose you. I love you too much. I think it's better for us, yeah. It's better for us, yeah. I don't wanna lose you. I love you too much, yeah. It's better for us than your mommy roll up to roll out.
Bless up, Dejo here, and I'm doing my part in the fight against COVID-19 by following all safety protocols and, most importantly, rolling up my sleeve for the vaccine. So I'm encouraging you to do the same, because that's our best shot of protecting ourselves, our family, and our friends. So don't wait, vaccinate. Let's roll up to roll out.
Welcome back to Leadership Matters. We have several questions and concerns we got from callers and persons who have sent messages to us. Leadership Matters is hosted by the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris, and this evening he is joined by the Financial Secretary in the Ministry of Finance, Hilary Hazel, Chief Medical Officer in the Ministry of Health, Dr. Hazel Laws, and Superintendent of Police, Cromwell Henry, from the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force. My name is Jacqueline Bryan, and I'm your host this evening. We're going to begin with a question asking, how is the government feeling about the current vaccination program, given the figures, and does the government plan on doing anything differently moving forward?
Well, very quickly, I would say that we are satisfied with the progress we have made so far. When you compare where St. Kitts and Nevis is at this time, compared to even advanced countries, compared, for example, with countries in the European Union, which would have started their vaccination rollout some during the first week of December. And some may have even started in November last year. We in fact started our vaccination rollout in the last week of February, on the 22nd of February, and we have gone a very long and successful journey, having now 70% of the adult population fully vaccinated. This is an important milestone in the context of St. Kitts and Nevis. Only the adults over 18 can be vaccinated, and so we have 70% of those who can. And in my view, it is an important milestone, but yet we cannot drop our guard. We have to continue to press on, and the aim ultimately is to get everyone who meets the criterion for vaccination to become vaccinated. The higher we can get our vaccination rate, the better the protection for all of us. And it then puts us in a better and stronger position to open up more safely and securely for all the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. So we are satisfied that we have reached a critical milestone. We want to encourage everyone out there in the communities who have not yet gone to do so. That is why the health centers continue to be open to administer the vaccine to those who require their first shot and those who require their second dose of the vaccine. I should say it took tremendous effort, tremendous work of diplomacy to be able to secure these vaccines, because we did not want a prolonged break after we had done the first round. Thankfully, today we have reached a critical milestone, but it is a destination that we have to continue. We do not stop at 70, we then try to get to the 100. The closer we get there, the closer we get there, safer all of us will be. And the science and the research so far, they are saying that the higher the vaccination rate of a country, the more resilient, that is, the stronger the country will be in terms of being able to deal with the variants that would come its way. And so the longer the lapse, the likely you're going to get more challenges with variants. So we want to continue on a path of progress. But this Chief Medical Officer is here, so she will give her own views and the view of the health technical team on the matter.
And that spoke to the variants, asking if we're still targeting 70% or if we now need to target 80% because of new variants.
Okay, so we intend to continue on the same path. Our aim is to cover the target population, approximately 33,000 persons. So to date, approximately 23,123 persons have come on board in terms of either the first or both doses on board. But I want to say that vaccine hesitancy is very real. We have about another 10,000 adults to reach in terms of coming on board in terms of accepting the vaccine. So I want to use this opportunity or this forum to reach those individuals who are still waiting and looking. All the data points to the unvaccinated as being the vulnerable individuals. The virus is reaching those persons who are unvaccinated. And so we are imploring you to come on board and accept the vaccine. And so, yes, we have a number of variants in circulation. In St. Kitts, we have the Lambda variant, and we are at risk of being exposed to the Delta variant. And in terms of the coverage, so our initial target is the adults, which comprise about 70% of our population. Now, if the Federation has access to the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine, which has been authorized for children 12 to 17 years, we can then even target the teenagers, and so by extension even increase our coverage beyond the 70%. So we are also looking at that.
We have a question asking if step workers will be paid for the period during the lockdown.
Well, step workers were paid. The government has never stopped the payment of step workers. If persons were not paid, they had particular issues unrelated to the lockdown, why they would not have been paid. And that would be a very, very small number if that situation ever exists. Every week, we ensured that the step workers were paid, and weekly persons were paid. In fact, on most days, we brought forward the payment, I think, to Wednesday. Every Wednesday, the Accountant General ensured that the monies were sent to the bank, so that on the days of limited operations, Thursdays and Fridays, there would be no problem.
We have a question asking, well, not a question, but the caller, who I'm happy was able to call in and finish her thoughts, suggesting town hall meetings on how to develop savings and whether economic shocks be held throughout the island, making those accessible. Would either the Financial Secretary or the Prime Minister like to comment?
Well, I was impressed by that call, to the extent that it speaks to the issue of empowerment, and it speaks to self-reliance, and it speaks to the fact that our people have to begin to know that when adversity comes, their first call will be themselves, and they have to therefore put themselves in a position to be of assistance. It requires persons even in small incomes, because some like to say, my salary is so small. But from the very smallest, something can save. Small things can add up to be big things over time. And once persons get into the discipline of putting aside something, they'll be better placed than someone, even on larger incomes, who refuses from saving. Saving is critical to stability. And even in the context of the country, that is how we have managed over the last 5+ years, 6+ years. The government has put aside some of its resources. When we were saying surplus and surplus, some people figure, well, why they don't spend the money? But it's not a wise thing. And it's because we did the wise thing in saving that money, creating a buffer. The IMF could report that we started this pandemic better than any other country in the world, in terms, relatively speaking, in terms of our ability to help ourselves. And that is why up to this date, somewhat 15+ months after the pandemic, we have yet to borrow 1 cent. But yet, every month and every week, those to whom the government is indebted, they are being paid and paid on time. So that is a remarkable achievement unmatched elsewhere. I was impressed, though, by the need for town hall meeting, and indeed my own constituency, we have started that. We have planned some. We have had to defer them because of the lockdown. I've had discussion this week with the chairperson of the constituency branch, and we are going to be launching a number of town hall meetings, targeting business people, sharing practical experiences with them, how one can remain resilient and strong and survive in the context of COVID-19. But it's a message that we have to bring to every employee of the government and in the private sector about how people manage, how people live within the means, how people make adjustment. And habits are hard to change. And what you find is that person, having been accustomed to live a certain way, when they perhaps did 2 jobs, 3 jobs, their regular job, they were able to work in a hotel or work at a supermarket in the context of the reduced hours. It's likely that one of those jobs may no longer be with them. And therefore, you have to be prepared to make the adjustment. Problems come because there is only 2 flows. The flows come in, your wages, your salaries, and flows that go out, your purchases, your commitments. When they are out of whack, you have to reconcile them. And simply, your revenues will either have to be increased, legitimately so, or you will cut your expenditure. And every household has to look again at what is coming in and what they are spending out. And if you're spending out more than what is coming in, you have to make the adjustment. You have to do it quickly. The sooner you reconcile those things to balance, the better you will be. And so I want to thank the caller, and perhaps would be glad to hear whether on such a panel she will be prepared to come and to lend to that discussion, both town hall and both in what we had been discussing before at the Ministry of Finance. How do we organize these kinds of discussions in the government sector? But they are valid and important for every individual in the country. And the earlier we can get people to understand financial management at the very basic level, then the better the country will be and the better all of us will be to face difficulties when they come. So thank you, caller, for that very useful suggestions. The Financial Secretary perhaps may want to add her own perspective, because we have discussed this in the context of our own civil service.
Has identified key areas where we would need to make a concerted effort to have a difference in the mindset of our people. I think that the government has shown good leadership in terms of the discipline, adopting the discipline of savings, and so it would do our country great dividends if we were able to have that kind of discipline adopted at every household, at every individual level that receives an income. So, thank you, caller. This is something that, as a country, we really do need to pursue.
Thank you so much for addressing or acknowledging and contributing to her thoughts and suggestion. We have a question, Superintendent, maybe you can just quickly rehash what you said earlier, asking specifically that persons who sell food and other food-related goods not be, prepared food and the smoothie cart, like she mentioned, be placed somewhere other than the public market on the Bay Road.
Yes, I did indicate in my opening presentation that there's a committee that is actively working on identifying space, another space within Bastille to accommodate these food vendors. And very shortly we hope that we'll be able to make an announcement as to where these persons will be relocated to. We have a number of areas that are being considered, and we are weighing the pros and cons of these areas so that we do not create another problem. We want the whole system of vending to be organized and to ensure that there is safety for the vendors themselves and for the patrons, so that everyone could operate in an atmosphere and environment that is safe, and we do not go back to what we had prior to the move.
Thank you for going over it once again. She did admit that she joined a little bit late, so hopefully she heard the response. We have a question asking about publicly naming and shaming companies that are not paying the Social Security contributions for their employees. Mr. Prime Minister, any comment on that?
Well, it's a suggestion, and the law in fact does provide. I recall some years back one could regularly have gone to the newspaper and find a list of persons who are in arrears with the Social Security Board. The Social Security, of course, will take persons who are delinquent to court, and they should do that regularly, and they should in fact publicize, because that way the employees who would be disadvantaged would have a better idea of who are the good employers and who are the bad ones. We would hope that it would not have to come to that. But again, in my opening remarks in the context of COVID, I spoke to the theme of personal responsibility. And every employer must be responsible. And every employer should do the honest thing. Having deducted the employee's contribution, you should ensure you at least deposit that with the Social Security, because the employer should be matching the deduction, I think, of 5% for Social Security. Even if you have a difficulty with your 5, at least the 5 that you took out of the employee's pay, you should pay that into the Social Security. And we would want everyone to be disciplined and to be honest enough to do that. When that is not done, we have all the problem when an adversity comes. When the worker is being severed, you can't find the records, you can't treat with the particular case, and it creates unnecessary stress and unhappiness in the society. So I believe there is a mechanism, from my recollection, for that. I'm hoping that the Director of Social Security and the board is taking note that they need at least to do the naming. I'm not sure about the shaming, but at least I think that it will be good that people are aware of some of these employers who have a chronic record of not doing the right thing by their employees and by Social Security, by complying. I want to remind employees too that they need not wait until they are severed to find out that the employer was not paying. They can go to Social Security at any time and get a printout of the contributions paid on their behalf, so that they are able to verify whether or not their employer is doing good by them.
Thank you so much for that. We have a caller who called in. She had serious concerns about the rights of senior citizens and how they are treated at business places. And in the second half of her remarks, she also indicated that she needed to speak with you. So I don't know if you can inform her of how to make an appointment.
Well, she can make an appointment through my office, 467-1043, 467-1043. She can also contact my assistant, Jackie, at 661-282-8255. 1136 661 1136. I hope I have that right, and we certainly would be ready to render some assistance. I want to make the general comment, not aware of the specifics of our case, that by and large we would want all our citizens to be treated fairly. And St. Kitts and Nevis will always be, or should always aim to be, a responsible, caring, and compassionate society. And in such a society, we always give preference and deference to our elderly, our senior citizens, the weak, the disabled, and we will hope that that is practiced more so that our senior citizens do not feel a sense of being unwelcome in any business place, and in particular any department of the government. So the Financial Secretary has oversight over the Inland Revenue Department. I would expect that she will attempt tomorrow to investigate the particular case. Unfortunately, we do not have the lady's name, but we may find a way once she called to get that name. It is not the kind of experience we would want for anyone. We are working, however, towards perfection of the gentler and kinder society we would want to have St. Kitts and Nevis become internationally renowned for. And so, again, we apologize for the inconvenience, and we certainly would attempt to improve on the kind of service that is being rendered, not just within the public sector, but generally across St. Kitts and Nevis. I hope that God will bless her and strengthen her and her family. With respect to the child, clearly we have outlined a package, and if there's something that we reasonably can do within the powers of the state, I can pledge that we will do the very best we can to work with you. So we look forward from hearing from you. 467-1043-661, 1136, or it might be 1336. 11? All right, so Jackie knows very well.
Okay, we have, and his assistant is another Jackie, just to be clear. We have a question asking about the stimulus package. The person has been contacting the Social Security office to find out when it starts and where they should go. So maybe this is a good time to say exactly who will be overseeing that package and when it will start and where they should go. Just a reminder.
Yes. Earlier, I indicated that the income support program as well as the fuel subsidy program would be implemented by the Ministry of Finance. We are hoping that by early next week, we would be able to share with the public the relevant application forms, and we would be able to be contacted at the following: the dedicated email address, which is covidsupport@gov.kn, telephone number 467-1092 and 662-1700. The forms would also be available at www.mof.gov.kn. We would be sure to publicize when the form is ready for applicants to collect, either downloading that form from the Ministry of Finance's website or physically collecting one at various government offices in Basseterre. We are hoping that we would be able to have printed copies of the form for those persons who would not be able to access the electronic version of the form. We are asking that as far as possible, when we have completed, we are expecting within another 2 weeks, we're working with the IT department to have an electronic application done so that the form can be actually submitted via that application on our website. But for now, we are expecting that the forms would be completed and a valid Social Security card would be also, a copy of a valid Social Security card accompany the form when it is submitted.
Thank you so much for bringing that up again for the benefit of the caller. We have a question, and it's also a question we got via WhatsApp, asking about persons who entered the Federation prior to the current SRNOs should only have to, an announcement was made that they only have to quarantine for 4 days. And this is from when the law took effect, that is Monday. Thus, they should be tested on Thursday as per new regulations. What is the reason and science behind keeping people in quarantine when the most current law does not call for that? And I think you can also answer the last caller's question about what day of quarantine will people be tested if they're fully vaccinated.
Okay, so inbound travelers who landed meaning fully vaccinated inbound travelers who landed in the Federation on July the 12th, that's yesterday, or beyond, they would qualify now for a reduction in the period of quarantine from 9 days to 3 full days. And I want to explain that their exit test, their nasopharyngeal swab for the COVID-19 test will be taken on the morning of day 4. And then the sample will be processed, and they will then be officially released from quarantine when that COVID-19 test result is returned negative. Now, if the sample gets to the lab early morning of the 4th day, normally the results are ready by the evening or the night of day 4. And they will be officially released from quarantine. So now this policy change took place or became effective yesterday, Monday, July the 12th. And so individuals who landed prior to July the 12th, they will, in other words, they landed under the previous protocols. And so the terms and conditions of the previous protocols, have to be fulfilled. All right, so individuals who landed yesterday or today and beyond, once you are fully vaccinated, you will now qualify for that reduction to 3 full days, and your exit test sample will be taken on the 4th day, the morning of the 4th day. And please note, you will be officially released from quarantine if a negative result is returned after that sample is processed.
Okay, thank you so much for that. So we move to our WhatsApp messages now as we bring the program to a close. The first question asks about the stimulus package, saying, Mr. Prime Minister, you outlined in your last press conference for the buses. Is that only for bus drivers in St. Kitts, or is it for both islands? And the second part of that asks, why is nothing mentioned about certified taxi drivers? I think they too should be a part of the stimulus package, seeing that some of them are certified taxi drivers and they too need help. Maybe you can give it some thought.
Well, taxi drivers already receive a range of support from the government, including duty-free concessions on vehicle. Taxi drivers can also access the $1,000 a month stimulus package if the conditions that have been outlined pertain to them. Taxi drivers also, again, if they meet the criteria, benefit from the provision with respect to the PAP program. So they are wide of, and that is why we say it's a comprehensive program that we have allowed. So there are multiplicity of areas to which one can look for support if they meet the relevant criteria. And it is for this reason too that in the analysis we, for example, will take into account, is the person receiving a benefit from another agency of the government in determining qualification. But we want to be helpful, and we certainly will render support to every individual that is in need at a particular moment in time. The arrangements that we have put in place, largely in relation to the bus operators, by and large relate to St. Kitts. In fact, some of the benefits that we now outline, when I spoke with Granny, he indicated that they already existed in Nevis, because they have operated under a very different arrangement in terms of the support. So that is the position at this particular moment in time, in terms of those.
Our next, well, this is more of a suggestion, and this, Mr. Prime Minister, my suggestion to you is, can you name the public market after Mrs. Crossley? And the vendors look so nice in the market. We have someone else who have asked, persons living on St. Kitts or Nevis are required to quarantine, can do so at their homes without requiring a guard. Why can't returning nationals who are fully immunized not stay in their own home without the presence of a guard? We can be given some kind of tracking device so that we are monitored from our home.
Okay, this is a very good comment. And again, we have embarked on a reopening using a phased approach. And so in the initial 2 weeks, individuals are being quarantined at COVID-19, official COVID-19 quarantine sites. However, we are hopeful that, in the following 2 weeks or a month, persons can be allowed to quarantine at home without having to pay for the security facility. So that's the intention, and so we are also considering utilizing a mobile application and the tracking device as noted by the person who posed the questions.
We have someone who wants to know, well, they're asking for confirmation that the water supply charges for farmers that were waived up to June has been extended to December 31st.
Yes, I think that was outlined.
Okay, that is a yes.
Yes.
Has anyone in the Federation who had COVID in 2020 or early 2021 become a COVID long hauler? And they are making a request that a presentation be included at the NEOC briefing on COVID long haul. So I'm assuming Dr. Laws would know what that is.
Yes, all right. So COVID-19 long hauler really refers to a COVID-19 survivor who continues to experience COVID-like symptoms for longer than normal. And so some of these symptoms can include fatigue, shortness of breath, other respiratory symptoms, even neurological symptoms. Some complain of memory loss, change in the ability to concentrate, etc. And so it's early days yet. We are monitoring the COVID-19 survivors, meaning those individuals who would have recovered from COVID-19 in terms of their experience locally. And so once this information data becomes available, we will provide same. And yes, we can include this in our debriefing presentations.
Fantastic. Oh, and I failed to mention a second part of that, which says, thanks for your hard work in keeping us safe. I thought that was important to include. This question is for the Prime Minister. I am a small business person who owns a bar. What is it that you will be doing for us? And what about the houses that Patches left? When will those be given out?
Thank you very much. The initiatives that we have outlined, basically anyone is free to apply, and a determination will be made whether or not he or she qualifies. So for example, the persons whose WhatsApp you just read, that person should feel free to apply for the $1,000 initiative. That person should feel free to apply under the PAP program, assuming he or she is not yet a beneficiary under those programs. Each of the government programs, each of them has their own criteria, and so a determination will be made with respect to them. So no one is excluded on the face of it. There are multiplicity or multiple initiatives, and one might well find where one is best suited once the application goes through.
And the houses?
The houses, I would wish they were given out a long time ago. And I have had conversation with the Minister of Housing, the Honorable Eugene Hamilton, with a view to see how we can put these on the fast track. Of course, it is a collaborative effort with respect to those at Wellington Road and those at Mansions, because they are built with the support of the government of Venezuela through a particular initiative. I think the paperwork has been finalized for those at Wellington Road. Those at Mansions basically do not have the same requirements as those as Wellington. And so as soon as they are, I should say, fully ready, then they can be distributed. From my conversations with Minister Hamilton, we are at an advanced stage of the paperwork, the final round of paperwork that had to be completed to ensure that the distribution is taking place in accordance with the agreement. So very shortly, and as I said, I hope it was done before, but we will try our very best to have things expedited. I should say that one of the hold-up is that the principal officer at the Venezuela government end, she's off island for a moment in time, undergoing medical treatment to the best of my recollection, and therefore that has created some degree of the delay there. So we are working very hard to have all of these homes be made available to the people at the soonest available opportunity. Home ownership is a critical plank of the government's program to deliver the stronger and safer future and to empower our people and improve and enhance the quality of their life.
We have someone who is stating that the police hardly visit places like Cafetry. As a result, there have been several breaches during the lockdown. It has been and still is a free-for-all for some people. The curfew is broken regularly, and even on lockdown days, people were congregating and not wearing masks. Are you aware of that, Superintendent?
Well, first I'm hearing of this particular issue, but I would hope that if you would call the station at the time when you see it happening, as opposed to weeks later, it would help if you call immediately so that the police could respond. I always say that the police depends on the public for extra eyes and ears, and so if you see something, say something at the time so that the police could respond appropriately.
And I believe the nearest police station.
The nearest police.
Old Road Police Station.
Well, for Cafetry it would be Sandy Point.
It would be
Sandy Point, yes.
Sandy Point Police Station. Okay. Thank you so much for sharing that. Well, the number for the Sandy Point Police Station is 465-6261. 465-6261. So the next time you see that happening, you can take the superintendent's advice and make a call. I would like to know, this person is asking, I would like to know what the Prime Minister is doing to get our citizens out of Cuba now that they have all these demonstrations and lives may be lost. There's a concern about the citizens in Cuba. Mr. Prime Minister?
Well, the unrest and uncertainty with respect to Cuba is of recent vintage. And so it's just about a couple of days. We are hoping, of course, that these protests would abate and would cease in quick order. There has been, to my knowledge, no request made to the government, or at least to the office of the Prime Minister, for our students to come back. And the appropriate ministry nonetheless will be the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Up to today or yesterday, I was in touch with our ambassador there, Her Excellency Verna Morris, and that did not feature. That did not feature. And of course, we will expect in these circumstances, our students would do their very best to keep safe and to avoid the areas to the extent they can where there are protests. And that does not just relate to Cuba, but any part of the world where you're at. If there is instability, you attempt your very best to avoid that particular area. So that would be the advice for now. It is a difficult period, and Cuba has had its challenges. They have exacerbated during the course of this year. Our people, they are resilient. The ambassador has come up and has put forward certain initiatives that could help make life easier for our students. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs should be following through with respect to those initiatives.
Thank you so much for that. This person says, good night, Financial Secretary. When will the government put the money in the development bank so that small businesses can get a loan at low interest rates?
Well, the government has placed monies at the development bank to assist small and medium-sized businesses with low-cost loans. So that has already been done.
Thank you so much for that. With the opening of the preschools, how will it be safe with these schools having so many children? Will they be taking less children?
Okay, so the reopening of preschools, or in other words, the early childhood sector, will depend on the adherence to the protocols that have been established to guide such. But I want to use this opportunity to highlight this observation. The safety within the preschools and the early childhood sector also depends on the vaccination status of the parents and guardians of the children in the preschools, and also the teachers. So apart from the protocols that's going to guide the operations, the vaccination status of the parents of the children in the preschools and the vaccination status of the teachers also facilitates or helps, goes a long way in terms of the safety, in terms of the reopening of the preschools.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And this final WhatsApp message has two questions. Good night to everyone. I have two concerns. Firstly, I realized that nothing was said about driving instructors with regards to anything special being available for them. And secondly, we would like to know when the road test and written tests will resume.
Again, in relation to driving instructors, some options that come to mind for consideration would be to make a determination that you can put a case, plausible case, a believable case, with respect to your qualification for the $1,000 initiative. And the second option would be to make an application to the PAP program. So readily those two seems imminently available to interested persons falling in that category. There is no need for a special initiative targeting that particular area.
Superintendent?
Well, yes, with respect to the commencement of driver's tests, as recent as this thing was on Monday, we had a discussion with that. The commissioner was asked that question, and he has asked that we put that on hold because he do not want to reopen and we continue the same way that we can that it was prior to the closing. We know we've had up to 100 persons at the police training school on any one day waiting to sit the written tests, and sometimes persons are there for up to 4 hours. That is very unsafe especially in an environment as we are in now. And so the Commissioner he has asked us to come up with a safer way to conduct the test, and we have a number of recommendations that we are working on shortly to be implemented. One of the things is the reduction of the number of persons who are sitting the test at any one time. We are also working on an information system whereby the test will be done electronically. So rather than officers will be passing their own papers, persons will be able to do the test electronically on their own device, or we will provide devices where they do not have device. The results would be tabulated immediately upon completion of the test, so they don't have to wait for hours for the officers to mark the paper. So you get your result immediately upon completion. Results will be sent to you via email, and you will get it on the device screen right away. So that would reduce the amount of time that you would have to spend at the examination center. So these are the things that we are trying to put together so that we make the environment safer, both for the students who are conducting the test and the officers. So we want to make the test electronic so that it reduces contact with the officers and paper, reduce the amount of time that they spend, and it reduce the amount of persons that we have doing the test at the same time. Hopefully we should be ready for that before the end of this month.
Thank you so much for that. So we've gotten to the end of our question segment, and the segment where they respond to your concerns and suggestions. Thank you so much for participating in that segment, and we will now have closing remarks in the reverse order of which we started as we bring the program to a close. So that means, Superintendent, we begin with you.
Well, we want to thank you, Jackie, and thank the Honorable Prime Minister for again having me on his program. It's always a pleasure for me to provide some of my knowledge to the public in terms, and educating the public in terms of their responsibilities, what the regulation says. We know that an educated public is a more informed public, and we would have less enforcement to do. We do not take pride in arresting people and taking people to court. We prefer voluntary compliance. It's ensure that you remain safe. The regulations are intended to prevent and control the spread of the virus. So where there are violations, it means that persons are more at risk. When there is compliance, it means that your risk is reduced, and you are almost guaranteed that you would be able to prevent being infected with the virus. And so we want to encourage persons to acquaint yourselves with the requirements of the regulations. And we know the basic protocols: wear your mask, sanitize frequently, avoid crowds and crowded spaces, maintain a physical distance of 6 feet from persons when you are out in public. And once you follow these basic protocols, when you go to businesses, you ensure that you do not cluster too close to persons in a checkout or while you're waiting to get in. Once you follow these basic protocols, your safety would be assured. We know we have been hearing about being vaccinated. Again, that is another measure that we could adopt to improve our safety. And so we want to encourage persons to follow the protocols, get vaccinated, and be safe. Thank you for having me, and pleasant night to all.
Thank you so much for being here, making that kind of contribution. Superintendent Cromwell Henry from the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force. Next, we'll hear from Dr. Hazel Laws.
All right, so based on our local data, the virus is mainly impacting the unvaccinated. So I want to use this opportunity tonight to reach out to the unvaccinated amongst us. I implore you to empower yourselves with the relevant information regarding the COVID-19 vaccine, and I want you to come on board and accept same. I want to reach out specifically to parents and guardians. Once you have children, we want you to seriously consider accepting the vaccine. You're not only protecting yourself, but your loved ones, your children. Just recently, over this past 2 weeks, we realized there are a number of students who were hindered in terms of taking their CXC exams through no fault of their own. They found themselves in isolation and quarantine because they were exposed to the virus because of the adults, parents, other relatives in the household. I want to reach out to frontline health workers in terms of coming on board, frontline workers in the tourism sector, frontline workers in security, the police force, defense force, public and private sector. The vaccination, the COVID-19 vaccination is a protective measure. We want you to come on board. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chief Medical Officer in the Ministry of Health, Dr. Hazel Laws. And now we'll hear from Mrs. Hillary Hazel.
Thank you. In the weeks and months ahead, at the Ministry of Finance, we would want to focus on the appropriate structural policies that we would have to prioritize. And one of the main pillars we are already seeing is building resilience, continuing to build resilience. A key message from this pandemic has been that we need to increase our attention to building resilience not only in the economy but in almost every sphere of our existence here in St. Kitts and Nevis. The IMF itself is projecting that the economy of St. Kitts and Nevis will grow by 10% in 2022. That is heavy. And that is going to take some heavy lifting. And so we need to do everything to work together to ensure that St. Kitts and Nevis can achieve this. We at the Ministry of Finance also looks forward to serving those citizens who are qualifying to tap into the various stimulus programs that would be rolled out in the coming weeks. We look forward to serving you, and we look forward to the cooperation of all. A pleasant good night to all the listeners who have stayed with us until this hour.
Thank you so much for that. That was the Financial Secretary in the Ministry of Finance, Hillary Hazel. And now, to bring the program to a close, we'll have remarks by the host, well, not the host, but the person who presents this program to you weekly, none other than Prime Minister Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris.
Thank you very much, Jackie, for again moderating so excellently another edition of Leadership Matters. I want to thank all of the panelists who came tonight well prepared and added value to the discussion that we are having on the way forward, and in particular areas related to the new SRNO and the stimulus package. Clearly they have generated quite an interest among a broadcast section of the community. We had some new callers. We want to thank them and to thank those who would normally call in, like Alice Pemberton and others. Always so sweet to hear from them all. We want to thank those who came with some very good suggestions, which we shall take on board. I want to thank Jam Down for being the voice of those who are looking for a place to ply their trade. And we certainly will not want, we want to encourage entrepreneurship. So everyone who is doing something to help himself, herself, can count on the support of the government. Comrade Henry and others are working diligently to find other places, other venues where we can safely place those who have to ply their trade for their daily bread. And we are hoping that by next week we will be able to announce some venues for those particular persons. We had a committee before put in place that have looked at placement for persons to ply their trade in Bastille. We heard about Branch Street tonight. That had always been in the mix. There have been other areas at the North Independence Square Street where the government has some land that has been identified. I have today asked the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister responsible for Port Zante to also look at an area there where possibly we might be able to find some space at a short-term measure, because there are, of course, plans for the further build-out of Port Zante, that is in the eastern part. And so I repeat those only to say that we are conscious of the need for an intervention, and we want to have that soonest. Superintendent Henry did indicate that the team is working hard, and so I believe that by next week, if not before, having regard to the urgency, that we will have a number of sites, or at least an additional one, being made available to help. You can count for us for that. So Jamdown and all the advocates on behalf of the people, I want to say thank you. The question had been put regarding Miss Crossley, and I want to say that she has been a fixture for a very long time at the public market, a stalwart there, and she has given long and meritorious service as a vendor of agricultural produce. And naming the public market after her would certainly be an honor. It would be difficult tonight to say what will happen, because I'm certain that there may be other persons who have done equal in terms of their contribution, and so it is a matter that I will put to the Ministry of Agriculture to do some consultation and to bring a proposal to the Cabinet, but none would want to minimize her outstanding contribution in this area. The hearts of the members of the Cabinet and our minds will be with the poor and vulnerable at this time. And indeed, in our stimulus package, you see how carefully targeted they were to some of the vulnerable persons in our community, families with disabilities, battered women, etc., children, and we are attempting really to serve those and to give them priority, those who haven't earned any income for a relatively long period of time. They are in our minds and they are in our hearts, and we are working to get them to the better place. The call, I think it was Bucky, made reference to Carleen Richardson, who benefited recently from a home in Tabernacle. Carleen, to my recollection, hails from Sadlers or some community outside of Tabernacle, but they had found residence in Tabernacle. At the time when COVID-19 had visited us, she was found, or the family, it was her mother, Miss Trimmy, and a son, or two children. The son is attending primary school, I think, at this particular moment in time. But they were found to be living in real difficult and poverty-stricken circumstances, where they were being sheltered under a makeshift galvanized. That was what was their house for a very long period of time, hidden under the galvanized, one would say, in very difficult circumstance, but they are resilient people. And the daughter, Carleen, had attempted to build that structure on her own. Officials from the Ministry of Health, I was advised that Dr. Laws may have visited, so she is aware of the very difficult and tragic circumstances under which she lived. We had Ann Wigley from the social development. We had persons from environmental health, German Lake and others, and they basically could not contemplate her being there in the context of what was visiting us, and immediately they took some necessary step to have them better housed. The son went to a family in Mansion, the McCall family. I want to thank them for taking care of him. And the mother of Carleen and Carleen herself, I think they were placed in the senior citizens home in Sadlers. We took a decision and recommendation from Senator Wendy Phipps that the government should intervene and to provide a house for this family. That house was done with some resources coming from our repair program to the hurricane, and we were able to have that completed with all the stops and start of the lockdowns, etc., intervening. Eventually we were able to deliver a beautiful 2-bedroom home free of cost to the family. And one gentleman who has been with us for quite a while, Mickey I think is his name, he was able to provide all the furniture. So the government provided the home, pay for the contractor to complete it, and the gentleman provided the furniture. The SCELEC was particularly helpful in having the house connected with electricity so that they can move in, and they now are a very happy family. I believe that that particular situation is an indication of the compassionate nature of the government, that we want all of our citizens to experience a better quality of life. Interestingly, the grandson of Miss Jimmy, he wants to be the next Prime Minister. And so we want to encourage him, because I believe coming from that particular circumstance, he will have a heart of gold, a heart of caring, a heart of understanding that poverty will be among us, but we can be rich in spirit. And even for someone under the shadow of that particular object, poverty, he has high aspirations, and that is one for our people, to have high aspirations, to believe that they can become the best of whatever career path they may choose for themselves. So I know that when this went out, the news went out, there was a lot of positive reflection in that from those people in Sadler's and the adjoining community in particular, who knew the circumstances of Miss Jimmy and her family. And I want to say that we are grateful and thankful to God that we could do this transformation. What we have done for Miss Jimmy, we will do for many other Miss Jimmys around St. Kitts and Nevis. So to God we give the glory, and I commit and recommit as the Prime Minister at such a time like this to do all in my power to be a source of positive energy, of strong support to those who need the helping hand of the government most. And at the same time to encourage our people to be resilient and to prepare themselves for the future. The future belongs to those who are best prepared, best disciplined, and who are motivated, notwithstanding the setbacks, to get up again and to go on the journey they have set for themselves. So may God continue to bless us all and to protect our country. Thank you.
Mr. Prime Minister, and I want to thank the persons who participated in this evening's program for making it what it was. I hope those listening and viewing found it to be educational and informative. I want to thank our panelists for making themselves available and sharing critical updates with you. And I personally would like to thank the persons who are praying for me and my family and who have given me your encouragement, your words of confidence and best wishes. So a pleasant good evening to all. Take care. And next week, same time, same place.
Okay, could you take everything off the table? We're gonna take the pictures.
Yeah. I know we can make it. It's only just a phase. Once we're vaccinated, and everybody gonna be safe. Everybody gonna be safe. One kind, yeah. One people. We are roll up to roll up, yeah. 'Cause no man's alone. Do what's right, alright. 'Cause I love you, brother, my sister. And we're in this together, my sister, my brother. I don't wanna lose you. I love you too much.
What's up? Dejo here, and I'm doing my part in the fight against COVID-19 by following all safety protocols and most importantly, rolling up my sleeve for the vaccine. So I'm encouraging you to do the same because that's our best shot of protecting ourselves, our family, and our friends. So don't wait, vaccinate. Let's roll up to roll out.
Whoa.